Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So today I'm just going to be talking about an off topic. It's got nothing to do with the Salesforce. I'll be talking about one of the book I published recently. As you can see on the screen, that's the Transcending Homo Sapiens, a transhumanist exploration. Now, if you've been following me along for a while, you might know, I published one book on Salesforce last year, and this is my second book. Obviously, it's got nothing to do with the Salesforce, as you can see. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about it, obviously, I have a YouTube channel, right? So I do know that we do have other interests apart from, learning just Salesforce, right? I'm very much into climate change, very much into transhumanism, very much into genetics, very much into nanotechnology, synthetic biology. This is another thing I spend a lot of time, apart from doing my Salesforce stuff and other stuff, right? So perhaps some of you might have similar interests. Some of you might be interested into transhumanism. Now, in simple terms, transhumanism is a kind of philosophical movement, if I say, which involves integrating humans with machines, right? Elon Musk, Neuralink is a very classic example. They put the chip in one person's brain so that the person can interact with the systems without doing any physical movement. Right? It's very useful if you're a person struggling with disability. Right? So transhumanism is one of the technological advancement or the next stage of human evolution, I would say. Yes, I do understand that people might have ethical concerns, might have you know philosophical constraints, spiritual constraints, even religious constraints, right? I'm like, for instance, I'm a Jewish man, right? In Jewish faith, right? Um, we, I mean, I don't want to get into religious stuff, right? Because I obviously, I grew up in a Jewish family, but I'm not very religious in the religious sense. I'm not an Orthodox Jew, but I follow, Jewish practice. I do Shabbat. I keep Shabbat, and I follow all the customs, but I'm not a very strictly observant Jew. In Jewish faith, um, we have a concept of infinity, right? I just don't want to get into the Hebrew stuff. So, some of my thinking for writing this book came from there, right? And then I got fascinated by some of the work Ray has done, and other transhumanists has done, right? So my main interest of putting this book out is just to make sure people at least understand, think about ethical challenges. Like, for instance, I've asked a few questions in my book, which you should, if you're interested. Obviously, it's at $10, right? It's not much from a Kindle version. I'm gonna put out obviously the physical version because I still working out the design. I'm very bad in design, so I've hired somebody to work on the design. So, and this is pretty much my design. As you can see, I really don't have much eye for design, but the thing I wanted to do is to keep everything simple, right? So I talked about a lot of things in my book, right? So if you go to the read sample here, you might be seeing some of the book chapters, right? Obviously, I talked about what is transhumanism and why talk about transhumanism now, right? Concept of post-humanism, right? And I try to explain some of the history of human evolution from, starting from the agriculture, industrial, information, and the dawn of transhumanism. The concept of transhumanism, right, fits quite under fifth industrial revolution, right? So fourth, and I would say the last stage of fourth industrial revolution and the beginning of the fifth industrial revolution, right? Then I also talked about historical perspective, then impact of brain computer interface on human consciousness. I briefly touched about consciousness, what it means. Can you upload your consciousness to a cloud? Can you manipulate your consciousness and re-upload it back? Then biotechnology enhancement, genetic modification, prosthetics, right? Because obviously we do have prosthetics So can we enhance it, right? Can we infuse AI into it? So it is not a reference literature book. It's like an introduction to transhumanism, I would say, right? Obviously, I could have written more technical, but this is my first book on transhumanism, so I don't really wanted to get into the extreme detail, like like a transhumanist Bible, right? I was not planning to do that, and and this book is not an attempt to do that, right? This book normally will explain you if you're beginning to transhumanism. Um, it will actually give you an introduction to transhumanism. And now, one thing I've done, right, after every chapter, I have a section called From Author's Desk, Reflective Queries. So where I ask 4 to 5 questions, and my authors know it in terms of my answer, what I think. And so the reason why I've done this, so that you readers can go and spend time thinking about some of the questions I've raised, right? It could be an ethical challenge, social implication. Can machine and human transhumanists marry in the future? If yes, what happens to the kids? And what happened to the role of parenting, right? And some of the and yes, it might get a bit controversial. I try not to offend anyone, not to add any controversy, but it's more from an intellectual perspective I've covered, right? Longevity, immortality, I talked about, and space exploration, I mentioned. Um, yeah, and I also talked about God, the role of God. Does God even make a sense? And are we an AI creature? Something like that. These are different questions of ours, different exploration I've done, right? That's why the book is about a transhumanist exploration. It's a world uh, past Homo sapiens, right? A world where humans no longer exist. Or imagine the world where there won't be any human beings. So that's the imaginary picture I painted. I even talked about transhumanism, Picasso, right? How the art, literature, music changes, the language would change. And then I also talked about the New World Order, right? The role of digital IDs, the single currency. Um, if you guys, and most of you don't know, that I'm working on a neural network currency. I've been doing that for many years. My team and I have been actively engaged. We haven't reached to anywhere yet. It's still in the process, right? So that's why I said. And when I was at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, when I was younger, when I was doing my degree there, I did used to talk about transhumanism. People who study with me at MIT, they might know, right? I was very vocal about transhumanism, even 15 years ago. So this is not a new topic, right? Um, it's been there for the past 200 years, right? I mean, it's just that it hasn't got attention like generative AI, even now, right? It's May 12, 2024. Not many people in the world knows about transhumanism, but that will change by 2030, 2035. Once the Neuralink takes its how do I say, once Elon Musk Neuralink becomes mainstream, transhumanism will become a norm, right? Um, yes, you might say there might be an ethical consideration. Why do you want to upgrade humans? That's the same question I would like to say. Why do you want to find a cure for cancer, right? Why do you want to look for cure for aging, right? Why do you want to introduce a beauty products to make you look younger? Why, right? So it's that's the wrong question to ask, in my opinion, right? The question you should be asking: what can we do as a human being to enhance our consciousness? Can we use technology to make our life better? And that's what the transhumanism is about: to take your human life, immortal, biological, to infuse with technology to make sure that we look after the planet Earth, we look after the resource, we take care of the very ecosystem, right? Because right now, human beings have done a massive bad job. We are making a lot of species extinct, right? We are responsible for a lot of climate change that's going on. We're responsible for soil degradation. We're responsible for wars. We're responsible for every bad thing that happened in the planet for the past 300 years. Humans are the front runners on that, right? We could barely get along with each other. Religious war, Holocaust, right? You name any war, everything humans played a role, right? Hatred, racism, and so that's where the transhumanism will come into picture to solve all that problem. Because if your consciousness is expanded to a level where you understand all the stuff what we're doing is meaningless, right? Let's focus on at the universal scale. Then I believe that we are heading towards a better future, right? It's not a conspiracy. It's not about um, you know anti-human propaganda, like many might say. Hey, transhumanism is anti-human propaganda. It is not. It is to make a good man better in a form of technological advancement. That's what it is, right? So, like I said, it's a $10. Go read it if you're interested. You might have a different perception. If you're somebody who thinks we are humans are playing the role of a god, not really, right? We are trying to make sure we are using all the stuff, the knowledge, what we can have on this planet Earth to make our life better. That's all to it, right? So that we can create a perfect harmony in this earth or in this realm, right? So that's all I'm trying to do from this book, right? So I'm currently working on um, one more book that's about the carbon tax. So if you remember, I mean, I don't know if you guys know that I write blog on climate change, and I think a year and a half ago, excuse me, I did a white paper on carbon tax where I explained different things about carbon tax, how you can implementation process, how AI can be brought into equation and kind of things, right? So, so ever since I've been working on this book, right? It's a small book, but I've included some equations and kind of things. So yeah, so that's pretty much right. So like I said, I'll put the link in the description below if you're interested, right? And go and read it. And this is not a controversial book, right? I've the way if I wanted to summarize in a simple word, right? I've made transhumanism uh, look look beautiful. That's what I did. It's my attempt to glorify transhumanism and to add the romance between a human and machine. That's all I try to do. To showcase the good things about transhumanism, ethical challenge we should be considering, and some of the tough questions I've asked in this book, right? So that you guys can all think about it, and we as a society work together to say, hey, what's the best way we can use to make sure we move forward in the right direction, right? That's all. So that's pretty much I wanted to cover in this episode. Hope you guys have an amazing Sunday. Adios.